at you with a how to play Heroscape tutorial video. Yes, for most of you, you already know how to play Heroscape. I've been doing this long enough that you've kind of figured it out, or many of you are already good veterans, but I've had enough requests and enough new players come to me inquiring of a how to play Heroscape video, and I meet enough new people and I'm in contact with enough people on this site and in other sites to know that having a tutorial video by myself would actually be quite valuable to send them to when they want to know how to play Heroscape. So today, sit back and relax and enjoy a quick tutorial, or just breeze right through and wait till next week. Regardless, this will be for those of you that don't know how to play or are looking to play and understand how to play this wonderful game. So it's going to be a very simple format, as you can see, and I'm just going to cover the very basics of how to play Heroscape. This is just from the starter set. These are units and terrain pieces from the starter set, so it's about as basic as you can get, which is always good to start out with a good foundation before you start getting crazy with all kinds of different terrain pieces and units. Just the basics is where you need to start. So, a couple announcements. One, to start off with this video, I just wanted to point out and a shout out to my brother, Eldonas. There, he signed it. He does wood burning, and he did a sweet wood burning logo thing for me and Lady Heroscape. He inscribed it there to us, and so this is a cool little placard that I have in my game room now from him, so I wanted to give a shout out to him. Great work. It looks awesome. I also want to announce that I've been in contact with All Things Heroscape again, and this month he is going back and readjusting some of his prices on his website, and he wanted to let us know that he will also be, aside from adjusting prices, giving us an exclusive 10% discount for those subscribers here on the site. So if you want to go and check out his website, his new low prices are now up, and he's giving us a 10% discount using code SH10, and use that at checkout to get your 10% off his product. So that's all the announcements for today. So let's jump right into how to play Heroscape. So the number one thing to start off is obviously creating a map. Now this was a map that I literally just threw together. A lot of people like to go on to Google or Heroscapers and find specific maps that are outlined by build instructions, and that's totally fine. But part of the creativity, the fun, and the excitement of Heroscape is just coming up with your own map. So you can just take these tiles and create your own map. It really doesn't matter when you're just having a fun casual game with friends. But start off by creating a map. Typically that involves creating what's known as a start zone. Simply, a start zone is an area that your units will begin the game on. Here I've indicated that by stone. So in this we've got Jandar units, Raylan and Sergeant Drake in their start zone. And then we've got Mimring and the Mara Warriors in their start zone, kind of on the cliff with the ruins here. So building a map and designing a start position for those units is the way to get started and set up for the game. Okay. The second part that you want to do to set up is then choosing your units. Now, typically, people will try to get balanced armies when you get used to the game, but it really doesn't matter when you first start the game what type of units you use. When I first started playing, honestly, I would go through all the cards I had, we would shuffle them up, and then we'd deal them out to each other and just play with whatever we had. Didn't matter what it was, or we would take the stack of cards and we'd take turns passing it one to the other and just picking whatever card we thought would have been fun. The key is that that's not always balanced, because the units are do have a point value here at the bottom right corner of their card that indicates what type of strength they are. So 50 points is, it's not very strong compared to like a 200 point figure. Okay, I won't get into detail how those points are evaluated and valued. Some are more situationally dependent, or the units they're with are dependent. But typically those points are an indication of the power level of the unit. So if you want to have more of a balanced game with your units, typically you're going to want to get you and your friends to have armies that have the same point value for your units. So here we have Mimring at 150, Mara Warriors at 50, so 200 points for that army. Here we have Raylan at 80 and Sergeant Drake at 110, so that would be 190. So essentially two balanced armies, right? Okay, so once you've chosen the units that you want to play with, you're good to go. But now let's cover the actual rules that involve the game. So let's start off with the basics and look at the army card. Okay, now there are two different army cards. We have a squad card, okay, and then we have a hero card, okay. So that will be indicated on the left here. We're going to talk about the type of unit it is. So we've got the Morrow, and then we've got human. So that's the type of species they are. We've got a unique squad, or a unique hero. That's the type of unit it is. Warriors, soldier, that's the, I guess, the class. And then you've got wild, valiant, that's the personality. And then medium 4, medium 5, that's the size of the unit. And then the height of the unit. So size medium, height 4, size medium, height 5. Okay, and so that kind of outlines the unit's background bio in a quick nutshell. Okay, at the top here you have the name, and then you have the faction that they're under. You have any special abilities. You have the life. You have the movement value, range value, attack value, defense value, point value, and then hit zone value. Hit zones here. Okay, so movement 6, pretty straightforward. Heroscape is designed to be very simple for 8 years old and up. So these are hexes. Movement is indicated by hexes. So you have movement 1, 2, 3, right? If you're moving. It changes with elevation. The thing I like about Heroscape is it's very, it makes sense. It's very practical. So when you're moving through a map, it makes sense that if you're going up elevation, it takes more energy. For me, if I'm coming down a mountain, it actually takes less energy because I'm like running down the mountain or the gravity's pulling me versus when I have to climb up a mountain. So coming down elevation doesn't take energy as much as going up elevation does. Same with water. When you're going through water, aren't you going slower than if you were on land? Yes, so water slows down movement. Okay, so we're going to talk about that here really quick. As you've got Sergeant Drake, if he moves 1, 2, 3, and he wants to go up, he really can't because he hits water. Water immediately stops all single space movement as soon as they enter the water. Now if I want to trudge through the water next turn, I can only move one space at a time. Okay? It's a very slow progressing movement when you're going through water. Okay? Now, if I'm going around, I just simply have to go around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, even though these two hexes are adjacent, the elevation change is 1. So what you're doing is you're actually counting the edge. You're going 4 on the edge and then 5 on the top. So if you were on an elevation like this, where it's an elevation 2, you'd actually count each side and go 1, 2, 3 to get on top. Okay? So that's kind of how movement works with elevation. When you have units that have flying like Raylan, though, well, Raylan or Mimring, units that have the flying ability, here on their card, it actually indicates their flying ability. If you read that in detail, essentially what... Man, I'm knocking all these figures over. Bah! Okay. All right, so essentially what that's telling us is that Raylan has the ability to fly over elevation, fly over water, fly over ruins, obstacles, whatever it is, without having to take extra movement. Essentially, she's flying up and over. So if she's counting movement, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So she didn't have to count the extra on that elevation. Or if she's flying from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She did not have to stop her movement in that water. Okay, so that's the very basic principle of movement. Now coming back down to the card, so we were covering movement. So we have range 1, range 6. Now the difference here is that Sergeant Drake is a melee unit, range of 1, meaning he can only ever attack units within 1 hex of himself. So any unit adjacent, okay? Now, Mara Warriors have a range of 6. They've got these guns in their hands. So they're a range unit, okay? So any units that have higher than 1 will have the ability to shoot other figures. The way you count for that with a ranged unit, if this is a Mara Warrior, is you count the hexes between the unit you'd like to attack. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Counting the space that the unit is on itself. Okay? So that's pretty simple. It gets tricky though when you talk about line of sight. So we're going to come over here and check on these line of sight indicators. Again, this is all the basic information on the card. So here on the card, the red indicates what part of the unit is hittable. That's called a hit zone. Okay? The gray means that is not a hit zone. So if you try to shoot their gun, it's not going to hurt them. If you try to shoot their leg, their foot, their head, that will hurt them. Okay, the green indicates the sight point. So that indicates where their vision is coming from. Some units in Heroscape, it's not very clear. You can't really tell. There's some sort of blob, so you don't really know where their eyes or their head is. And so the green indicates where the sight point is for that unit. Okay, so from the sight of this guy's head, is he able to see the hit zone of Sergeant Drake's body? If he sees the gun, it doesn't count. If he sees the sword, it doesn't count. If he sees any other part of the body, it does count. Now, this is kind of a unique situation, but you actually wouldn't be able to attack Sergeant Drake with a ranged attack, a normal ranged attack. Sergeant Drake has this special ability, Thorian Speed, that says opponent's figures must be adjacent to Sergeant Drake Alexander to attack him with a normal attack. Okay, so that actually indicates that he cannot be shot by ranged or non-adjacent normal attacks. Okay, now the key here is that says normal attack. Any normal attack is just an attack using the stats on the stat card. If that said special attack there, then that would be referring to any attack special that's indicated on this part of the card. Okay, so that would actually then reference something like Mimring, where it says Fireline Special Attack. So Mimring has a special attack here, range special, attack 4. That attack, even though it's the same value as his normal attack, it's indicated that this is a special attack. So he could actually kill, or attack rather, Sergeant Drake. So the way to kind of indicate, oh man, you know, all these intricacies, what happens first, you always reference the card, and then you reference the special abilities to see what type of extenuating circumstances show up. So if someone says, hey, I want to use my Moral Warrior to attack Sergeant Drake, you would say, okay, yes, you are in range, and yes, you can see his hit zone, but I have a special ability that indicates he cannot be attacked. Now on the other side of it, if you had Mimring and said, okay, I have Mimring, I'm going to attack Sergeant Drake, he's within his Fireline special attack, I'm going to target Sergeant Drake, I can see his hit zone, and he's in range. I'm ready to attack him. Now the opponents might say, oh no, I have Thorian Speed, but then you would say, no, I'm using his special attack, which bypasses this special ability. Okay? So that's kind of how it works, is you kind of have to know your special abilities of your units and how they work together. The wording in the Heroscape units is actually very, very thought out. It's not meaningless. It's not fluff. Every word in the Heroscape special wording is there for a purpose. And so it's important to pay attention to how they word things. Okay? So that's the card. That's kind of the unit's movement range. Now quickly, attack and defense are pretty simple. I love the attack defense system they have here in Heroscape. You have dice. You have an attack dice and defense dice. Essentially, these dice have all on the same, but the basic set that Heroscape came in, they actually had separate attack dice and defense dice. Then you have other generation dice where both symbols are on the dice. Regardless, each dice that's an attack dice will have 3 red sides, so 50% chance of wounding. And then every defense dice will have 2 sides. And then you'll have a blank side or a symbol side. Don't worry about the blank or symbol side. It's just meaningless when you're starting out in the base game. Okay, so when you attack, you use the value, attack value 6. You get that many dice, okay, and you roll. Okay, now I rolled 1 skull. So that means I'm dealing 1 amount of damage to whatever opponent that I'm attacking. I clear my dice, and then my opponent, say he's attacking the Moral Warrior. So say the Moral Warrior's right here. My Moral Warrior has 3 defense, so I take 3 dice, and I see how many shields I get. Okay, now I got 1 shield, so that blocked Sergeant Drake's attack. I am safe. If I had rolled a blank, I had gotten no shields, I would take 1 point of damage. Now after taking 1 point of damage, you refer to their life here on the card. Now, because this is a squad figure, there are 4 figures in the squad. They work as a unit. So even though there are 4 figures, each unit has 1 life, versus a hero, which is 1 unit that has multiple lives. Okay? So if I did not roll that defense, I would take 1 point of damage on this figure and he would be removed from the game. Ways to adjust these values are what's known as height advantage, okay? So if Sergeant Drake were here on the cliff and I had the Moral Warrior right here and I am higher, see my base elevation is higher than his base elevation, I get +1 to my attack. So instead of 6 dice for my attack, I now get 7 because I am higher than my opponent's base. So I rolled that attack, and I got 2 skulls out of all 7. So I clear my dice, and then the Moral Warrior would roll defense. Now, the Moral Warrior's defense does not change just because he's lower elevation. He still rolls 3 dice. I roll. I only blocked 1 of the 2 damage. So Sergeant Drake was dealing 2 damage. Moral Warrior blocked 1. Moral Warrior is now removed. Okay? Now the other thing is what about range bonuses? Because he's adjacent. Range works the same way. If I've got Moral Warriors up here, and they're attacking down, they're going to be attacking down from height. They get +1 to their attack value. So if they've got an attack of 2, all of a sudden, that becomes an attack of 3 because they're higher. And now I roll 3 attack dice on my opponent's figure. Okay? So height advantage is extremely important in the game of Heroscape because it gives you that much stronger position. Now if I've got Sergeant Drake, who's up in their grill right here and he's attacking up elevation, if I'm a lower figure attacking up on a higher figure, then the higher figure gets +1 defense. So Sergeant Drake's still attacking for 6, but now the Moral Warrior, instead of rolling 3 defense, is rolling 4 defense. Okay? So again, height advantage is really an important key to this game, is it's giving you the opportunity to hold a position on a height, shooting down with extra attack, and then when units come up to attack, it gives you extra defense when they're attacking you. So that's kind of how all this information operates, just by looking at the card and kind of how these units work on the battlefield. So now let's go to taking your turn, order markers, and initiative. Start of each game, you have what are known as order markers. You have 1, 2, 3, and X, okay? You've got your army cards in your army, and you assign these order markers to your units. You can assign any number of order markers to any number of units, so I can go 3 and X, 1 and 2 here, or I could go 1, 2, 3, and X, or just X, 3, 2, 1. Any combination is possible. Okay, now the order markers indicate where your turns will be going. All right, so if I put order marker 1 on Sergeant Drake, my first turn will be on Sergeant Drake. I cannot change it. My first turn is Sergeant Drake. Okay, my turn number 2, if it's on him, is him as well. Turn 3 is on Raylan, then I take a turn with Raylan and not Sergeant Drake. Okay, so order markers indicate the units that you will be using that turn. Okay, the X order marker is simply just a ruse. It's there to fake out your opponent, to keep them on their toes guessing where your next turn is. And so that's more of a strategic order marker than it is anything else. So at the beginning of each round, you place your order markers and indicate your turns. And well, let's see, and so your opponent would do the same. So let's just do that. Okay. And now these would actually not be face down, they would be face up. You don't want your opponent seeing that. So this would actually be like this, so that way you're sitting across from your opponent, they can't see where your order markers actually are. When you reveal your order marker, that's when your opponent knows where your turn is, okay? But for the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna leave them down like this. Okay, so turn number 1 is on Sergeant Drake, turn number 2 is here, 3 here, and X there. Okay, now so once both opponents have set their order markers, or 6, 7, however many opponents you have, once everyone has set where they're placing their turns, you roll for what's known as initiative. Initiative is determined by rolling the D20. Okay, each player rolls the D20, and I roll an 18, and let's say Utgar rolls, and Utgar rolls a 9. Okay, so the highest roller for initiative gets to go first. So I, as Jandar, rolled an 18, I got to go first, so I reveal on Drake, and I say, okay, I'm going to take a turn with Drake. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So your turn consists of a few things. Once initiative has been rolled and it's your turn, you first reveal your order marker, 1, on the army card. Second, you take a turn with that figure by moving the unit with that move value. And that's what I did there. And then the third part of your turn is actually attacking. Okay? Now, some special abilities here, depending on the unit you're using, will indicate different actions or different actions, attacks, or movements that you can do that would normally go against the basic rules. But in the base set and for most situations, this turn system is going to be what works. Is going to be what you're dealing with. You're revealing an order marker, you're moving the unit with the indicated value on the card, and then you're attacking with him. But since I don't have a range value on Sergeant Drake, I can't attack this turn, so I declare my turn over and pass to my opponent. So then my opponent says, okay, Mimring is my turn number 1. And so he says, okay, well, I've got a move value of 6. And he takes Mimring and says, well, Sergeant Drake is scaring me a little bit. So I'm going to move here, and I'm going to use his Fireline special attack of 4, that says choose 8 spaces in a straight line for Mimring's special attack. So since Sergeant Drake's in a straight line, I can attack Sergeant Drake with my special attack. So Mimring, even though he's higher, does not get a bonus to his attack for his special attack, because the special attack indicates how much attack value you get. So no height bonuses for special attacks. So Mimring declares an attack on Sergeant Drake. So let's go ahead and roll that. Mimring rolls 1. Sergeant Drake has 3 defense, and he gets none. Okay? As soon as a hero takes a point of damage, or however many points of damage he failed to defend against, you take a wound marker here, and you place it on the hero. He was at 5 life. He's got 1 wound, so now he has 4 life left before he's removed from the game. Okay? So, Mimring has attacked. His turn is done. Now, after turn 1 is finished, it returns to me for turn 2. Sergeant Drake wants to move up. 1, 2, 3. Now, I'm right here. I can still move here if I want to attack Mimring, but all my movement is stopped as soon as I attack Mimring from this position because I'm entering water. So I moved 4 spaces, but I can't move any further. Now, notice this situation. I have lower elevation on both Mimring and the Morrow Warrior. So if I attack either of them, they're getting +1 defense to their defense roll. Okay, now I'm gonna bring up one other thing here is now that we've started doing turns and attacking and defending, we need to talk about engagements. So right now I am adjacent to my opponent, these units, and I am what's known as engaged in combat. Now, again, this is a very practical game, so it makes sense that if I am adjacent to an opponent and we are enemies and we are engaged in combat, there would be consequences for what's known as disengaging or removing myself from combat. So, if at any point I use Sergeant Drake and say, I want to leave my position, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, I've essentially left the combat of this dragon and this Morrow Warrior, and I've basically turned my back and hightail it out of there. Now what this does is this allows my opponent's units to attack me for 1 free wound. Okay, so for Mimring would take 1 die and roll it. If it rolls a skull, it's an automatic wound on my hero. Okay, now for the Morrow Warrior, it would do it as well. So the Morrow Warrior was in combat with me. He would roll 1 dice as well. If it's a skull, I take another wound. So disengaging can potentially wound your hero or squad figure or whatever more than you would like to. So there are consequences for removing yourself from combat. So depending on the unit, depending on the situation, maybe you don't want to engage with multiple figures. In this situation, I'm going for it. Sergeant Drake, why not? So I've engaged myself with 2 opponents. We're engaged in combat. And until one or both are dead, I really can't move my position. Because if I move here, I've disengaged from him. If I move back up here, I've disengaged from him. We are no longer adjacent in combat. So being here has kind of stuck myself. So be aware of where you engage your opponent's figures because it may not be the best situation. So we'll just go with this. Sergeant Drake actually is going to try and slay the dragon. So we'll go 6 dice, and he rolled 3 skulls. So that is 3 hits against Mimring. Now Mimring has a base defense of 3, but height 4. Okay, only blocked 1, so 2 wounds go on Mimring's card. Now let's look at Mimring's life. 5 life, 2 wounds, 3 life left. So Sergeant Drake's turn is now over, and now we go to my opponent's turn, turn 2, Mimring. Now Mimring is engaged with Sergeant Drake. I could use the Fireline special, but I'm an opponent from height. I want to use my attack bonus because I'm going to get +1 to my attack value because I'm higher. So I've got 4. I'm higher than him. I get 5 attack dice. So let's attack Sergeant Drake back and see what happens. Okay, 1. So Sergeant Drake can totally defend that. Let's go for it, Sergeant Drake. And he doesn't, so he takes 1 point of damage. Okay, now turn 3 is on Raylan for me. Okay, now even though I'm engaged and I want to take a turn with Sergeant Drake and I'm saying, oh, I want to kill Mimring, I want to kill the Mara Warrior, I cannot because I've put my order marker on Raylan. So Raylan needs to fly in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so she's going to sit here, and unfortunately I can't do much else because I've decided to use her instead. Okay, so once my turn's done there, I take a turn 3 with the Mara Warriors. And now this is an important point for squad figures, is all these figures are heroes, so I take a turn with one of them. I move and attack. Squads, because there's 4 figures, you move all 4 figures, and then you attack with all 4 figures. So squads are actually quite potent when you've set yourself up right. So these Mara Warriors, I'm going to just move him up right there. He's engaged with Sergeant Drake, so he's going to have to attack him anyway, because another point of engagement, another rule for engagements is that when you're engaged with combat, you have to attack the opponent that you're engaged with. Okay, so for a ranged figure, I've got a range of 6, even though I could technically shoot Raylan in range, because I've got Sergeant Drake engaging me in combat, I can only attack him. Okay, so that's important for range figures, as your engaged opponents can only attack. You can only attack engaged opponents. He is not engaged by an opponent, so I can attack Raylan if I want to. Okay, and now I'm going to move him down, and I'm going to move him down. And the reason I have to move him is because from those positions back there, remember, I could not see Raylan. I needed to see her hit zone. Any red part of her figure, I need to be able to view in order to attack her. And remember spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got 3 figures in sight and on height to attack Raylan and 1 attack down on Sergeant Drake. Okay, now I won't bother with those attacks because we've already covered those attacks as is. And so I just wanted to kind of show how that operates with a squad. Now one thing you'll also notice is that my Mara Warriors have a move value of 6. You're not required to move the entire movement value. You're not required to be exactly within 6 range. Right here, I'm only within 3 of Raylan with that Mara Warrior. So that's the maximum move value you can use, and that's the maximum range value that you can use as well. So again, this is kind of a very simple setup with the base set rules. And there's obviously a lot of specials on other units and a lot of different terrain types that change some of these basic rules. But this is how Heroscape operates. You've got 2 armies that are essentially balanced by their point values down here. Okay, once you've got your 2 armies, you set order markers to indicate the turns that you want to take. Once you've set those turns, you roll for initiative to see who goes first. Okay, once you see who goes first, that person does their number 1, then you rotate going 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. As soon as you've finished all 3 of your turns, then you do what's called reset order markers and roll for initiative again. Essentially what that means is you decide where you want to put your order markers. So this time during round 2, right? So the first round was round 1. This is now round 2. I decide I want to use Sergeant Drake with all 3 of my turns instead of Raylan. He's my strongest attack potential. I'm going to use him all 3 times. Likewise, I've got Mimring over here who's only got 3 lives left. Maybe I decide I'm going to use the Morrow Warriors all 3 times and only Mimring once because I'm afraid he's going to die. So once we've decided to reset, again you roll for initiative and see who gets highest, and then you proceed in the order of turns. Okay. As soon as an opponent's figure receives enough wounds to die, so as soon as Sergeant Drake gets 5 or Mimring gets 5, you remove that figure from play, okay, and just put them on the card here. And as soon as your opponent's figures have all been removed from play, so say Raylan gets killed off as well, then your opponent has won the game. Now that's in a very basic a very basic kill 'em all scenario. There are obviously other campaigns, other scenario types that change those rules, but in a very basic, fun kill 'em all type of game, that's how you determine the winner. So Mimring and Morrow Warriors won this one out just because I declared it right now on how this worked. I don't know if that actually would have happened, but that is the tutorial for how to begin playing Heroscape. Again, it covers the very basics of what you need. You need a little bit of terrain, a few figures, you need order markers, a set of dice, any type of marker really. It doesn't have to be specific Heroscape wound markers. And you can get playing. It's very simple. You know, on eBay, on All Things Heroscape, on a couple other third-party sites, Heroscape terrain can be bought for fairly good price, 30 or 40 bucks for the base set. And you're getting a ton of terrain with about 40 different unique figures. You get a set of dice, not these dice, but you get a set of dice, 4 sets of order markers and wound markers, and you can get playing. This is about half of the terrain, actually not even half, this is about a third of the terrain that comes in the base set, and these are only a few figures from the base set that you would get if you started off playing Heroscape. So let me know what you guys think. I tried to cover as much as I could. This is essentially how I teach new people when I bring them into Heroscape. Again, there are a lot of new rules with the new terrain types and the other units that come into play. But if you have any questions, by all means, let me know. I will do my best to answer those in the comments, as I'm sure you'll point out things that I may have missed. So, again, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget that All Things Heroscape has adjusted his prices and lowered them and given us a 10% discount on that new pricing. So check out his website. He is great to deal with. I've purchased from him multiple times. Love his customer service. So, again, very excited for some new fun things coming our way. The next couple weeks are going to be exciting with some videos I've got down the pipeline. Just wanted to show my appreciation to you subscribers and a lot of your newer subscribers by giving you a how to play beginners tutorial. So go out there and get started playing. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys next time.